Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Two to Go, Bayou Heat, by Alexandra Ivy and Laura Wright, narrated by Emily Beresford. Chapter 1. She was a ghost. Didn't exist. It was part of the deal, the shit they'd each signed. Not with a pen or in blood or anything, but with their agreement to join the Pantera Security League. While some weren't taking that agreement very seriously, cough, cough, servile, she did. With every breath she drew into her lungs. The safe house at her back, the sun overhead, Elyon picked up speed, racing through the wetlands, darting in and out of the cypress. She never ventured into the wildlands, of course. Rules, bitches, remember? But she did get close. Close enough to work her favorite magic. Shifting into her cat. Shifting out of her cat. Back and forth, like a blink of the eye, clicks on a camera. The feeling was a total rush. Heat and cold, wet and dry. Hunger, then thirst. It was such an infrequent luxury to have fur on her back, and with each mile she covered, her frustration, her irritation at her fellow six member started to ease. Unfortunately, it couldn't cease altogether, because that would be impossible. After all, the male had just declared some crazy shit back there, calling someone his, unwilling to leave her side, declaring her his mate. Hallie, that was her name. Cue the eye roll. Elyon shifted into her cat again and snarled at a bird trying to keep pace with her. She couldn't believe Servile had stepped over that line. And with an asset! She flashed back into her female form just as a rush of wind hit her face. Maybe she should give Ramiel a heads up in L.A., so he didn't completely lose his shit when he found out. Go hunting for Servile. Or Raphael. It was, after all, the big boss who'd told her fellow ghosts to end it with that female who was this close to becoming his mate. Made him choose. And now he was letting C off the hook like that. Not cool. After she'd completed her mission, she'd make a quickie trip to Hollyweird, take the mail for a drink, or 7, and spill the beans. Unless, by some miracle, Servile had come to his senses and cut things off with Hallie by then, or at the very least he'd have something to say for himself that didn't include long stretches of silence while he stared at the asset, drool running down his chin. She leapt over a fallen log, shifting into her puma mid-flight. Yeah, baby. Not that she was opposed to drool, or guys, males, drooling. When it was aimed at her, of course. She was, after all, a 6-foot, sleekly muscled hottie with silver-white hair that she'd buzzed close to her head. Her smooth skin was the color of caramel, and her eyes were a brilliant, passionate blue. She'd had men drooling from the day she'd grown breasts. Once upon a time, it had been a curse. Now it was just plain fun. But she'd never, ever, ever give up her life, her work, her vow for a drooler. Mating was a true sucker's bet. And love? She laughed. Didn't exist. Not in her past, present, or future. A scent hit her cat's nostrils, and she hissed into the wind. She was close. Almost there. The thing was, she didn't begrudge Servile or any of the males she worked with a little piece on the side, some action when they needed it. She was known to take what she wanted when she wanted it, too. Maybe it wasn't even the mating that bothered her so much, but witnessing her friend so openly vulnerable. He had trust in his eyes, love, belief that Hallie was worth giving up everything for, trusting her with his very soul. He didn't know what that meant, what damage could be done. She did. And no matter what, she'd make certain that no one ever came close to touching her soul on such a primal level. She'd eat their heart if they tried. Her cat leaped onto the bank in front of the abandoned one-room shack. For several seconds, she allowed it to frolic in the water, kicking up mud and plants. It wasn't until her entire coat glistened in the sun that she shook herself off, then shifted back into her jeans and leather.
Can't stay away from this place, can you, Ellie?
The leader of the suits had shifted mid-stride and was walking toward her with a grin. The top brass of the diplomatic faction of the Pantera was pure, golden perfection. Thick blonde hair, richly tanned skin, and eyes that were jade at the moment but glowed with liquid amber power in his cat form. "Hey, boss," she called out as he approached. "This little shit shack was my home at one point, and we always come home, don't we?"
"Only if we have information to share with the class," he replied.
As the male's scent settled around her like a cloak, Elyon's cat purred. Raphael was one of very few in the world she considered a part of her pack, along with the 6, of course. Not that she fully trusted him. That honor went to no one but herself. But she believed in him, looked up to him, respected him, and was eternally grateful to him. After all, he'd saved her. Unlike most Pantera, she hadn't been raised in the wildlands. Her parents had been diplomats, working in Central America. Passing as wealthy human business owners, they'd been targeted by a local gang. Their house had been ransacked, but they'd only taken one thing, the most precious item her parents possessed. Her. Like the true cowards they were, the men had snatched Elyon when she was in the care of the housekeeper, and soon after a ransom was demanded for her return. She'd only been 5 freaking years old, but it had taken the men less than a day to realize there was something different about her. Poor babies. Not. Scared by her stunning strength and eyes that glowed blue fire, they panicked. Instead of dropping her on the doorstep of her terrified parents, they'd taken her to the jungle and dumped her in a swift-moving river. No doubt they'd hoped she'd drown, her body swept away by the water, or perhaps eaten by one of the numerous predators. Two badass hats. Death was so not her. She'd not only survived, she'd thrived, become a predator herself. Granted, she hadn't been able to shift into her puma form, being outside the magic of the wildlands, but she had the instincts of a wild animal. A few months later, she'd been found and taken in by 2 ancient sisters who lived together in a village that was way, way off the grid. They'd cared for her, loved her in their way, and treated her like their own cub. Not at all surprisingly, the memories of her real family grew distant and indistinct pretty damn quick. That is, until Raphael walked into the village and claimed her as a Pantera. How he'd found her he wouldn't reveal, but he'd insisted she return to the wildlands, at least long enough to allow her puma to be given the opportunity to be released. Oh, bless him for that. It had been glorious. But, unfortunately, once there, she'd sort of freaked out, emotionally. She'd refused his pleas for her to be reunited with her parents. Thing was, she just hadn't been ready to open herself up to her family. To Pantera she barely remembered. Not yet. So, Raphael had given her an option. To become a part of the Pantera Security League, or the 6, as they called themselves. To become Elyon, the angel who guided, comforted, and protected, but who also brought plagues on the houses of anyone who tried to screw with her. And truly, she'd never regretted saying yes to that offer. Even when the news of her parents' death had come to her 8 months after her return. Goddess on high, she'd actually been grateful. The work had stolen every dark thought, every great and powerful wave of guilt, every deep regret, and turned it into supreme productivity. And an iron wall around her heart.
"You have something to share, Ellie?"
Raphael said, his gaze constantly moving, always aware of his surroundings. When Pantera were away from the wildlands, even a hair over the border, they were always looking for trouble, especially these days. She nodded. "I do. I managed to locate the RR that was on the message." Interest sparked in the older male's eyes. Just a week before, Xavier, the head of the geeks, had intercepted a message from their enemy, Christopher Benson.
Code Red. Dispose of all test subjects at Rattlesnake Ranch, China House, The Orchard, Mulberry Lane, Battle Creek, and RR.
Serviel had just returned with the test subject at Rattlesnake Ranch. Hallie, the mate. Now it was Elyon's turn, though her asset retrieval was going to go a hell of a lot differently. Get in, locate, extract, deliver.
"Tell me,"
Raphael commanded. She glanced around the remote area and the safe house she'd spent many months at when she'd come home with Raphael. There didn't seem to be anything to concern herself with, but life had taught her to be cautious. She always assumed that there was someone hiding in the shadows or listening from the bushes. Paranoia? Maybe, but it had kept her alive. I was able to run the names you found in the original message against the files we managed to download from Benson Enterprises, she told Raphael, turning back to face him. She was nothing if not resourceful. From online to inside, when she'd first started up with the PSL, she'd discovered that she might not have her parents' skill as a diplomat, but she did possess an uncanny ability to blend into the criminal subculture. She felt perfectly at home with human predators, thieves, cutthroats, dealers, and she could blend in easily despite her Amazonian size. The general population couldn't tell at a glance that she was Pantera, but they could sense the danger that smoldered around her with an unspoken warning that a person with a half a brain didn't want to screw with her.
You got a hit?
Raphael pressed. She nodded. RR, Russian room. Not surprisingly, the leader scowled.
What is it?
She reached into the pocket of her leather coat, pulling out her phone. With a few swipes of her finger, she found the image she was searching for. A narrow brick building with a large front window and an iron door. It was 3 stories, with old-fashioned fire escape ladders zigzagging between the barred windows and a flat roof. She held it up to show him. On the surface, it's a small restaurant in New York City, she explained. Raphael leaned forward, studying the image.
And beneath the surface?
Underground fight club. He released his breath with a low hiss of fury.
They're using Pantera to fight?
That was my first thought, too, Elyon said, feeling her cat scratching at her insides. Poor furry girl, wanted out again. One taste was never enough. For either of them. But I don't think that's what's going on. I've done some heavy-duty research on the place, and it looks like the typical hangout for overly aggressive humans who feel the need to pound the crap out of each other. Sounded like a show not to be missed. If only she had the time. Raphael nodded, trusting her words without question. That was what she appreciated most about him. He gave her a task and then trusted her to complete it. No looking over her shoulder or pestering her with micromanagement.
What's the connection to Benson?
He instead asked. His corporation owns the building, she said. It had taken her hours to unravel the complicated tax forms that had finally led back to Christopher Benson. But she was nothing if not persistent. And an insomniac.
What's their interest in a human fight club?
Raphael spoke his thoughts out loud. I'm on my way to find out.
You're taking this one?
Raphael demanded. Unless you have an issue with it, she said, then gave him no time to argue. I've already prepped my backstory and uploaded it to the usual sites used by fighters. A smug smile curved her lips. She might be a suit by birth, but her hacking skills were pretty damned impressive, even if she did say so herself. Come on, it's perfect for me. If anyone looks me up, I'm the angel of death who is just returning from Hong Kong. She patted the pocket of her coat. I also asked for an old friend to email me an introduction. Raphael arched a brow.
Do I know this friend?
Only if you happen to be a part of the Serbian mafia. His lips twitched. He knew better than to ask how she became acquainted with a man who ran Serbia's crime syndicate. Hey, she knew a lot of people, most of them unsavory characters who lived in the shadows of life, and who most upright, or uptight, citizens tried to avoid. But no judgment.
How are you getting there?
He asked as a warm breeze blew across the bayou. She inhaled the familiar scents and almost wished she had an hour or two to just kick it by the water's edge. I have a private flight booked for this afternoon. He studied her for a long, silent moment.
Do you want me to have Leo go with you?
Her brows snapped together. Are you trying to piss me off? He stepped toward her, the power of his cat filling the air with sizzling heat.
We don't have enough intel to know what you're walking into.
She slammed her fists on her hips, her own cat sliding near the surface as she glared at her mentor. No longer did it want to come out and play. The furry bitch inside her wanted blood. Seriously. If it had been anyone but Raphael questioning her solo abilities, she would have made them regret even voicing the question. "I can handle it," she said through tightly gritted teeth. Raphael made a sound of impatience.
"I know that, Elyon, but it's not always bad to have a partner."
She stepped back. It was her natural reaction to anyone who tried to invade her personal space, whether it was physical or mental. No trespassing, period. Even with Raph. "I prefer to work alone." Raphael released a soft, resigned sigh.
"Yeah, that's what scares me."
Understanding dawned. This partner thing wasn't about capability to him. It was about vulnerability. "I think you're going soft in your old age." He wasn't baited.
"Call it whatever you want."
"Okay, I'm calling it a pain in my ass. You're not my father, Raphael."
"No, but I hope I'm your friend."
Damn him. He was always doing this kind of shit to her. His kind, truthful words making her flinch, making her belly go kind of soft. Okay, fine. She knew she could be difficult. She was aloof, aggressive, and prickly. A genuine bitch. But she deeply valued the few people she allowed past her barriers. Like the Six. And this awesome leader of the Pantera. The male who'd found her, freed her. "Of course you are," she said, chewing her lip. "Course you're a friend." Jeez. He folded his arms over his chest, giving a faint shake of his head.
"When I asked you to be a part of the Pantera Security League, I hoped that it would give your life a sense of purpose."
"It has." He acted as if he didn't hear her.
"But I didn't count on the fact that your work would isolate you even more."
"I'm not isolated," she protested. And she wasn't. She spent most of her time in big cities, trolling the streets for information that couldn't be found by more formal techniques. It was amazing what she could learn. Shit that was just floating along in the sewers of humanity. Raphael wasn't fooled by her flippant response.
"Oh yeah? When was the last time you spent more than an hour or two with your friends?" he challenged. "Or taken a lover?"
She sucked in a harsh breath, holding up her hand. "Servial's bullshit has rubbed off on you, clearly."
"I'm deadly serious."
"So am I. And grossed out. You might want to check yourself." Okay, so maybe he was kind of a father figure after all.
"This isn't about mating,"
he pressed.
"This is about connection. With anyone or anything."
"Okay, this conversation is over." Raphael ignored the prickle of warning in the air. Typical.
"Because you don't like the questions," he bit back.
"No, Raphael," she said tightly and pointedly. "Because who I do or don't have in my bed is none of your damned business." He stared at her, eyes narrowed, silent as the grave, waiting for more, waiting for her to cave. Christ! Elyon spun on her heel and started away, from the water, safe house, and him. "I'm out of here. I have explosives to prep and an asset to retrieve."
"Be careful, Elyon," Raphael called after her. "I'm here if you need me."
Please. She didn't need anyone. Not that she was going to turn around and tell him that, because weapons prep was a hell of a lot more interesting than standing around defending her capabilities, or chit-chatting about connection, or who she was or wasn't boning. As she moved farther away from the border, and her overly concerned mentor, her cat snarled with caged frustration inside her chest. Chapter 2. Brewing coffee, steaming garbage, sizzling meat. New York City, baby. Elyon grinned as she moved down the street, her long legs eating up the stained pavement. It was just after 7 o'clock. Darkness had fallen over the Lower East Side, but the lights from the various bars and restaurants spilled out onto the sidewalk. Dressed in a black leather jacket that hit her at the waist, skin-tight spandex pants, and heavy shit-kickers, Elyon ignored the lingering stares from both men and women. She was single-minded now, utterly focused, turning into a narrow alleyway and only pausing long enough to stuff her small backpack into a dumpster. A bag that contained a hotel key card and enough explosives to take out the nearby brick building. She grinned. She was definitely a female who liked to be prepared. And hey, if she couldn't get her target, same rules apply. She'd be forced to turn the place to rubble, not to mention destroy anyone inside. Once satisfied the bag was hidden beneath a layer of trash, she circled back to the front door and headed inside the restaurant. Instantly, she was assaulted by the smell of meat, onions, and roasted beets. In the center of the dimly lit space, there were a half-dozen tables, all occupied by older men and women, large plates of stroganoff or bowls of borscht spread out before them. Immigrants who occasionally sought a taste of home? She wondered. Or paid shills who kept both an eye out and shit looking real. She sniffed. Maybe a mixture of both. She'd see soon enough if anyone tried to stop her from exploring further. Her gaze searched the shabby interior, finally landing on a black curtain in the far back, opposite the kitchen. Feeling the eyes of the patrons clinging to her, she headed straight for it, ready to answer any questions with her fists, or her knees, or her foot. Her smile widened as she pushed past the curtain. The right one had been known to break multiple bones. And the occasional boner. But surprisingly, no one stopped her. Behind the black fabric, she found a narrow hallway, lit with the same god-awful fluorescent crap you'd find in an elementary school. Moving with a lazy grace, she crossed the cracked linoleum floor and turned right into another hallway that led to a narrow flight of stairs going up. The smells of food receded and were instantly replaced by the sense of a gym. Rubber mats, disinfectant, and sweat. Bingo! The lighting sucked the farther away from the restaurant she went. Only a bare light bulb that did a piss-poor job of battling the thick shadows. Something that might have been dangerous if she didn't have her cat senses. As it was, she could easily see the man approaching her through the gloom. As if his heavy steps and rank stench of vodka hadn't warned her first. The stranger was a large beast. He had at least 6 inches on her, which was saying something, with powerful broad shoulders. His dark hair was cropped into a military flat top, and his features were bluntly cut, with pale eyes. He was wearing a pair of camo pants and a white-ribbed tank top, and he had that expression that said, "I'm either going to kill you or eat you." Poser. And so boringly predictable. She headed for the stairs, already prepared for Mr. Meathead to get in her face or grab her arm.
"Hang on, sweetheart,"
he growled, doing both.
"Where do you think you're going?"
She arched a brow, then glanced down at the thick fingers that circled her arm. Another asshole thinking it was okay to get in a female's personal space. As she glanced back up, making a tisk-tisk sound with her tongue and teeth, she noticed a second human male. This one had come out of a door to the left and was climbing down the stairs. 1, 2, she counted slowly, her gaze returning to the hand on her arm.
"Did you hear me?"
the man snapped. Elyon grinned. She'd have to be deaf not to hear this asshole's grunts. Her nostrils flared and she let the scents wash over her. 3, 4... She continued her counting.
"Bitch, you'd better get your hot ass out of here or I'm going to—"
5. She interrupted his flattering yet unwelcome threat, moving with blinding speed. The man released a shrill scream as Elyon wrapped her fingers around his wrist, squeezing hard enough to shatter his bones. Pretty. She didn't stop there. Still holding his mangled wrist, she whirled to the side. The motion dragged him off his feet and slammed his body against the brick wall. There was a loud thud, like a sandbag hitting cement. A very large, very sweaty sandbag. She released her hold, a taunting smile curving her lips as the man gave a groggy shake of his head and forced himself to his feet. "I did count," she said in sweet tones. The guard swore in Serbian, then charged forward. Elyon heaved an uninterested sigh, neatly stepping out of the way. Really, it was sad. There was a time when the Russian mafia hired only the best fighters. Now it seemed their standards had gone straight into the gutter. Who the hell charged in such a narrow space? Waiting until he was lumbering past her, Elyon swirled to lift her leg. She kicked him in the ass, sending him shooting into the brick wall on the other side of the hall. This time the sound was more of a crack than a thud, as his skull connected with the bricks. He groaned, sliding to the floor with a dazed expression.
Nice move.
A male voice sliced through the air, his accent hinting to a childhood spent in Moscow.
Can I help you with something?
With a last glance to ensure the guard wasn't intending any surprise attacks, Elyon turned her attention to the man who was standing on the lowest step. He was short and square, with thick salt and pepper hair that was greased back from his florid face. He had heavy jowls and dark-rimmed glasses that were tinted to hide his eyes. An old trick that was supposed to intimidate opponents back in the day. He looked like the stereotypical Russian mob boss. Seriously, the entire place was just one big cliché, she silently and irritatingly concluded. That depends, she told him.
On what?
On how much money you can offer me. He shrugged, raising his hand to study his manicured nails.
You know how to cook stroganoff? Or are you a waitress?
He asked, pretending not to know why she was there. Heh, idiot. I'm asking how big your purse is, she bluntly demanded. There was a gurgled sound from the guard who was trying to raise his bloody head. Grr? Elyon released a sharp laugh, nudging his ribs with the toe of her boot. Is that Serbian for, I just got my ass kicked by a girl? The man on the stairs clicked his tongue.
Clearly, I need to upgrade my security.
You're Viktor Sokolov? The man glanced toward the opening that led to the restaurant. The sound of muted conversations drifted through the air, along with a new scent that made her stomach rumble. Meat and vinegar. She'd really hate having to blow this place up before she got a plate of whatever that was.
In my office,
he abruptly commanded. Victor turned to climb the steps with surprising speed. Yes, sir. Grinning, Elyon followed behind him, taking the stairs 3 at a time. Once they reached the top, she had a brief glimpse around an open space that had been converted into a gym with a large boxing ring in the center of a wood-planked floor. There was the typical weightlifting equipment, an area with several punching bags, and a treadmill. There were also 3 separate doors that were closed. The man in front of her opened the closest one and stepped inside. She paused, allowing her senses to sweep the confined space to ensure there was nothing lurking inside. It was empty. Still, she waited until he'd moved across the cramped space to lean against the desk littered with messy piles of papers before she stepped over the threshold.
Look, Milya,
the older man started. Name's Elyon, she interrupted, her expression hard with warning. No one was allowed to call her honey or darling or sweetie or babe in any language, not unless they wanted their face rearranged.
Fine, Elyon,
he conceded in patronizing tones.
I appreciate your...
He deliberately paused.
Balls, but I run the best club in town, which means I don't let every stray fighter who walks through the door in the ring, even if they're smoking hot. It's invitation only.
She reached into the pocket of her coat, removing the email she'd printed out before leaving for New York. Consider this my invitation, she said, holding it out. The man grabbed the paper and swiftly scanned the brief note. His brows climbed up his forehead. If this man considered himself the best in New York, then he had to know that Karl Ricart was the best in the world.
You know Richard?
He breathed. I've fought in his tournaments. The man tossed the paper on the desk and pulled out a phone from the inner pocket of his tailored suit. He was smart enough not to accept a possibly fake email as proof of her credentials. Bravo. He texted someone, hopefully Richard, who owed her big time for that ex-lover issue she'd helped him solve, then typed her name into a search engine and pulled up the bogus information she'd uploaded.
The Angel of Death, eh?
He read out loud. She hid her smile at the ridiculous name she'd given herself. Cage match fighters were all about the drama.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?